Minecraft random seed glitchless speedruns can be unpredictable to say the least. There could be periods of many months between new world records, then suddenly multiple world records in a short time span. For every world record, there is a former world record, and as with all things in life, someone will inevitably get the short end of the stick. Well, there's been one person in particular who has had many of their world records sniped within days of getting them, even once within seconds. I'm talking about Illumina, and in this video I'm going to go over some coincidences that are almost too surreal to be real. On May 5th, 2020, Illumina and RealBenix were both live streaming their runs on version 1.14 in hopes of getting the first sub 25. About an hour into Benix's stream, he loaded up a world and Illumina did the same 10 seconds later. Little did either of them know, they would both be breaking the world record at the same time. Being that this is 1.14 Classic, you may be unfamiliar with how the run works, so I'm here to tell you. After gathering basic resources, players enter the Nether and get blaze rods. They will also get TNT from desert temples and use it to blow up savanna villages or dark oak forests. This is because you can trade villagers sticks for emeralds and emeralds for ender pearls, which is way faster than just killing endermen. After pearls and rods are obtained, players head to the Stronghold, enter the end, and kill the ender dragon. Anyways, where were we? Oh yeah, they both just created their worlds. Benix spawned near a village with a desert temple close behind him, a very good spawn. Illumina's spawn was eerily similar, but instead of a plains village, he had a desert one. Over the next few minutes, both players collected basic resources such as tools, food, and iron, and the first one to enter the Nether was Benix. About a minute and a half later, Illumina would enter, but Benix already had collected 3 blaze rods by that time. Remember though, blaze rods are very RNG dependent. Not only do they have a 50% chance of dropping, but the amount of blazes that will spawn every cycle ranges between 1 and 4. Benix got pretty good drop rates, going 7 for 11, taking 2 minutes to acquire those, and Illumina went 7 for 12, but only used a minute and 40 seconds killing blazes. With a combination of better spawn rates and finding a stray blaze, he was able to gain some time back on Benix, only to have that become obsolete due to his nether portal's proximity to the fortress not being great. Anyways, with both players back in the overworld, now is a good time to remind you that neither of their villages were savanna ones, so they had some exploring to do. Benix chose to travel by horseback, and by the time Illumina was exiting the Nether, he had located a dark oak forest and was blowing up trees. Illumina, however, was able to find a savanna village. Contrary to what you may think, at this point both runners are on virtually the same pace. Even though Benix was ahead of Illumina exiting the Nether, having to travel to a dark oak forest and back to a village for trades is a time loss. Over the next few minutes, both players got their wood and started their trades, but what I haven't told you yet is that the most tense part of the run was quickly approaching. You see, when unlocking the 3rd trade from a cleric, you actually have a 2 out of 3 chance of getting the ender pearl trade. 1/3 of the time, you will get glass bottles, and the glass bottle procedure is to reset the run. Fortunately for the runners, they both got the ender pearl trade, meaning that statistically, you probably shouldn't speedrun version 1.14 directly after watching this video. Anyways, Benix threw his first eye of ender at 1535 and Illumina did so at 1558. Now the journey to the Stronghold, so let's skip forward a few minutes. Benix located the Stronghold and started digging down at 20:07, and about 35 seconds later he entered the end. Illumina started digging down at 21:03, and his Stronghold layout was much worse than Benix's, so he wasn't in the end until 22:25, a minute and 22 seconds behind Benix. Now, the only thing standing in both of their ways was the ender dragon. The end fight strategy for this time period was to bow down the towers and deal damage to the dragon when it perches by exploding beds and whacking it with a sword. While it's not perching, players usually try to chip away at its health with arrows. Typically, it would take 2 perches to be able to kill the dragon, but perch speed is very dependent on RNG. While Illumina may have entered the end much slower than Benix, both of their second dragon perches happened at around the same time, with Illumina getting his 10 seconds ahead of Benix. With a final bed explosion, Illumina killed the dragon at 24:37, finishing the run with a time of 24:46. Benix killed the dragon at 24:42 and finished the run with a time of 24 minutes and 52 seconds. Incredibly, they finished their runs a full 3 seconds apart from each other, making this most likely the most unlikely event to have ever taken place in speedrunning. Now that is a sentence you gotta say 5 times fast. I'm gonna show their final times side by side, and I want you to tell me who you think got the world record. Is it A. Illumina, B. Benex, or C. Matthew Bullen? If you guessed A, you would actually be incorrect because these timers aren't what's used to properly time a run. Minecraft speedruns are timed using in-game time to avoid hardware discrepancies, and Benex had a worse PC than Illumina. In turn, he had to spend a total of 15 seconds loading dimensions, while Illumina only had to spend 6. When these runs happened, Illumina had the world record, but after a thorough retime, Benex was given the title. In other words, Illumina's world record lasted for 3 seconds. Let's skip forward nearly 11 months to February 22, 2021, well after version 1.16 had been released. At the time, the world record was shared between Raynex and Xylonox, both with times of 14 minutes and 7 seconds. On the first run of his stream, Illumina loaded into a pretty good seed. He spawned near a village, and that village had 2 blacksmith houses which together contained 9 obsidian and an iron pickaxe. After killing the iron golem to be able to craft a bucket and flint and steel, he entered the nether at 3 minutes. At this time, Illumina didn't use the F3 function, which lets a player know if and when there is a bastion within render distance in the nether, so spawning in a basalt delta wasn't a fantastic sign. Not only can bastions not spawn there, but movement speed can be pretty limited. Fortunately, he soon stumbled upon a nether waste biome and with it, a fortress. Upon climbing up to the fortress, he was able to see a treasure bastion in the distance, and at this point, he realized that this could be a really good run. Now, a lot of players would play the bastion first in this scenario because piglin trades give fire resistance and blazes are scary and shoot fireballs that hurt. Illumina, on the other hand, is built like a Gustav gun and played fortress first, showing those blazes who's boss. This decision paid off because he went 6 for 7 on blaze rod drop rates. Now for the bastion, which was a treasure type. With treasures, players typically mine 2 gold blocks on the bridge, make their way up the stairs to where the rest of the gold is, and trade with piglins. Illumina's route was pretty similar except for the fact that there was some lava flow blocking part of the path. Sometimes, lava flowing in bastions can mean just having to reset the run, but Illumina was fortunate in still being able to go up the stairs. Once he had piglins trading, he mined the necessary gold and threw down his exiting nether portal right in the bastion. Illumina left the bastion at 8:30 and the stronghold was super far away. On top of that, the terrain he had to traverse in the beginning was awful, but it was saved by him getting plenty of ender pearls from the bastion. Soon enough, he hit an ocean, and for the remaining distance, he just had to boat because the stronghold was ocean exposed, and most importantly, so was the portal room. Illumina entered the end at 12:30, and everything was now in the hands of the dragon. As the time ticked, the window for world record was shrinking, but alas, at 13:33, the dragon perched, and he performed a very clean one cycle, finishing the run with a time of 13 minutes and 53 seconds. He had just set a new world record and gotten the first ever sub 14 minute run nearly 6 months after Corbanos got the first sub 15. This run was a big deal. He had proven that it was possible to get a 1.16 random C glitchless world record without using F3. Not only does this run have 3.7 million views on YouTube, but Carl Jobst even made a video about it, calling Illumina the GOAT of Minecraft speedrunning. This run single-handedly ended world hunger, brought peace to the Middle East, and it was broken not 24 hours later. Okay, let's backtrack for a second. Who broke the record? Well, none other than the man with 13 letters in his name, 2-letter name. Now, at the time, TLN, which is what I'll now refer to him as, had a personal best of 15:24 and was fiending for that sub 15. Well, he did one better and got a sub 14. Instead of fully breaking down this run, I'm gonna draw parallels to Illumina's run. Instead of spawning near a village, he instead spawned near an ocean where he got iron from a shipwreck and more from a buried treasure. He entered the nether at 3:45. 45 seconds slower than Illumina, but instead of playing Fortress first, he chose to play the Bastion first. I wonder why. Anyways, after routing it and getting all of his trades, he was off to the Fortress at just under 6 minutes. At this point in the run, Illumina is entering his Bastion, but not long after, TLN finds a Fortress and enters at just over 7 minutes. In some absurd stroke of luck, he runs into 6 stray blazes, 4 of which drop. Soon after, he ran into a group of 3, with 1 more dropping, giving him 5 blaze rods before he even made it to the blaze spawner. Once at the blaze spawner, he got almost no spawns, but the one that did spawn dropped a rod, and he was out of the nether at about 9:10, 40 seconds slower than Illumina. Now, TLN didn't have ocean travel, but his stronghold was significantly closer than Illumina's. Still, the power of an ocean-exposed portal room is unreal, and Illumina was in the end 13 seconds before TLN. Quite literally, the entire run was gonna come down to the perch because he needed a faster one than Illumina's. At 13:30, the dragon perched, but he was unable to kill it with 5 beds. No worries though, because 4 axe blows later, the dragon was dead and his final time was 13:52. Now, keep in mind that this run hasn't been retimed, so it's quite likely that the actual time was more like 13:50. Hold on a second, did you catch that? I just said that a world record run hasn't been retimed. Why on earth would that be? Well, sit around the campfire and let me tell you a story of how TLN absolutely fucking shattered his own world record the day after getting it, which was also the day after Illumina got his. Actually, I already made a video about this exact event, but I'll still briefly go over the run. Much like his last run, TLN got iron from a shipwreck and way more iron from a buried treasure. He was in the nether at 3:20 and he was immediately able to see a bastion and a fortress. He went to the bastion first and was out of it at 6:20. Funnily enough, if the piglins hadn't given him enough fire resistance potions to tranquilize a medium-sized horse, he would have been out way sooner, but in this run, the fortress was also way closer. After purling to the spawner, he killed Blazes until he had 6 rods and left the nether at almost exactly the same pace as his last run. The only difference is that when he threw 2 eyes of Ender in order to gauge how far away the stronghold was, the second eye throw changed angles by 30 degrees, telling him that he was basically on top of the stronghold. He entered the end at 11:18, and with the guitar solo from Freebird by Leonard Skinner playing, he was prepared to kill the dragon. What he wasn't expecting was one of the fastest dragon perches ever. After landing a 5-bed 1 cycle, he claimed the world record again, but this time it wasn't gonna get beaten so easily. Also, I don't know if you remember, but earlier in the video I mentioned that it took nearly 6 months to break the 14-minute barrier, and here TLN was breaking the 13-minute one in 2 days. At the end of the day, Minecraft speedrunners just want to see each other succeed, and I'm sure Illumina is no different, but having your world record broken the day after you get it, then the same person shattering that record the next day, is quite unfortunate to say the least. Let's skip forward a bit, specifically to April 19th, 2020. This was the day when Brentilda got the first and only sub 10-minute run, and at the time, nobody really knew how hard this would be to beat. Well, it wouldn't take too long to find out, because after multiple months of nobody even getting a sub 11, it appeared to be the magnum opus of Minecraft 1.16 RSG. There are a few things that you need to know about this run, and one of them is that Brentilda paused for over 90 seconds. At the time, you were allowed to pause like that, but having an in-game time of 9:36 and a real-time attack of 11:09 brought some debate amongst the Minecraft speedrun community as to whether IGT or RTA matters more. In terms of the leaderboards, IGT is what matters, but having the RTA World Record was no small feat. The thing is that Brentilda's run was so good that he had the RTA World Record as well. During the run, Brentilda entered the end at around 8:20 after using a strategy called Divine Travel to go from the nether directly to the room next to the portal room. From entering the end, the dragon perch speed basically comes down to RNG. For the longest time, nobody had been able to enter the end faster than 8:20 or beat the RTA World Record, but that would all change on the day of August 26, 2021. Who would achieve this? Well, Illumina of course, so let's take a look at how he did this. This run starts unlike any run I've talked about in this video, with a mapless buried treasure. What is a mapless buried treasure, you probably just said to your screen? Well, essentially by using the pie chart, you can know if you're in a chunk with a buried treasure. On top of that, buried treasures always spawn at the 9-9 chunk coordinates, so by knowing the chunk, you can find the treasure. If you're looking for a more in-depth explanation, I suggest watching Talking Mimes video, which will be linked in the description. Anyways, the buried treasure has 8 iron, 3 diamonds, gold, and some food. On the island where he spawned, there was also a lava pool, so after getting wood and crafting tools, he was able to enter the nether at 2:25. Since Illumina is using F3 in this run, he is able to pinpoint the location of a bastion and begins to head in the direction. On the way, he runs into a fortress, which is an extremely good sign of a bastion. This fortress, however, is in a soul sand valley, meaning that a lot of mobs will spawn. In Illumina fashion, he plays the fortress first, big dicking every blaze fight, giving no fucks while effortlessly dodging fireballs and fending off wither skeletons. Not only that, because his blaze rod drop rates were exceptional, and as he goes out of the concealed area of the fortress, ta-da, the bastion. At exactly 420, he got his final blaze rod, insert funny joke, and the bastion was a housing type, which is arguably the best type, but definitely the most consistent for getting trades. By breaking a chest, he is able to aggro piglins and they chase him to where the gold is. After trading for a bit, he gets everything that he needs, and since he is already at good coordinates, he is able to exit the nether at 6:09, which is an absolutely ridiculous pace. Unfortunately, he spawns in a cave, but fortunately, he's not too far from the surface and just digs up. He throws his first Eye of Ender at 6:51, and after traveling in its direction, he hits a large ocean. Wanna guess what happens next? If you guessed that he paused the run to make a viral TikTok dance about him being on world record pace, you wouldn't be correct, because he actually finds an ocean exposed stronghold. This stronghold also happened to be very linear, so he was able to find the portal room fairly quickly. At 7:50, he enters the end, becoming the first person to enter sub Rta and having a legitimate shot at the seemingly impenetrable world record. Unfortunately, this isn't the world record, so here's a sad time lapse of the time ticking away. Finally, at 10:40, the dragon perched and he pulled off a very clean one cycle. His RTA was 11:03, which finally dethroned Brentilda's 11:09 record. On top of that, this run was also the second ever sub 11 minute IGT. By all accounts, this run is insane. I'd argue that this run alone has redefined how players look at 1.16 RSG and boosted morale by a shit ton. After not a single person breaking Brentilda's IGT or RTA world record for over 4 months, this run is like a breath of fresh air. But it doesn't end there, because the Illumina curse struck again 2 days later. Not only was this run a brand new RTA world record, but it happened during something known as the K4 Hour Challenge. Basically, it's a challenge hosted by speedrunner K4 where people try to beat as many runs as possible in a 4-hour time span. Being that runners are just trying to beat as many as possible rather than beating the game as fast as possible, resets are more sparse, and a normal time for a run during this challenge would be around like 20 to 25 minutes. In other words, Hofik 1337 beat the RTA world record without even necessarily attempting to. Let's take a look at the run. He spawns on an island nearby a shipwreck, and some conveniently placed dolphins help him glide over to it. The ship contained plenty of iron and food, and nearby was a magma ravine which Hofik would use to enter the nether. His nether spawn was right next to the fortress, and similar to Illumina, he played fortress first. After going 7 for 10 on blaze rods, he uses his F3 to find a bastion, and it turns out to be a stables. By far the fastest one with really good RNG. The biggest concern with the route he took is not getting enough obsidian, but top chests have him covered. I mean, holy fuck, 30 obsidian. Anyways, after getting all of his pearls, which took a bit of time, he exits the nether at 7:53, much slower pace than Illumina. However, he doesn't spawn underground, rather he spawns over an ocean, and wanna guess what's poking out very close by? The portal room of the Stronghold. Hofik entered the end at 8:47, about a minute slower than Illumina, but Illumina got a bad dragon perch. With a relatively decent one, he would easily beat the RTA world record. Well, this time the dragon was more favorable, and after baiting the perch, it actually perched at 10:24, and as a wise man once said, enjoy the one cycle.
Holy fuck. What the fuck? Oh, Boże.
The final RTA time was 10:45 and the IGT was 10:36, making Hofik the first person to ever get within 1 minute of the IGT world record. So far, I've analyzed how Illumina held a world record for 3 seconds, 1 day, and 2 days, but is he really that unlucky, or was it inevitable? I think we can all agree that the Benix vs Illumina 1.14 world record was super unlucky, but what about the 13:53? Well, in order for me to answer that question, you need to understand what was going on in the Minecraft speedrun community at that time. Using F3 to locate bastions was something that was publicly released by K4 on February 15th, a week before Illumina's run. It would be an understatement to say that this discovery that was hiding in plain sight changed everything. Runners were able to reset way more efficiently knowing whether there was a bastion or not, and finding a bastion no longer was a daunting task. In my opinion, that world record was never gonna stick for very long. If not for a 2-letter name, the Blazer 97 would have beaten it 4 days after the run happened, and a month after it would have been 6th place. It is, however, pretty unlucky that he got a world record while so much change was going on in the category, but that's a completely different discussion. So what about the 1103 Rta World Record? Well, I think it's a very similar story to what happened with the 1353 because new strategies are starting to get used, like forcing 20 obby from a bastion so the option for perfect travel is available. Granted, Hofik didn't use perfect travel, but still, many people have entered the portal room at low 9 minutes only to not have enough Eyes of Ender, so eventually someone had to get lucky enough. I will, however, acknowledge that getting a 3-minute perch was very unlucky. Also, I think it's very telling that in this video I just went over a fraction of the world records that Illumina has set. Most people won't ever get a world record, much less have 3 of them beaten right after acquiring them. Anyways, this is the longest commentary video I've ever made, and my voice is starting to get tired, so I hope you enjoyed this video, eat your vegetables, and have a great day.